All right. I checked. There's no reverb. I'm not getting any extra audio. Okay, good. Let me go to my chat. Okay, everything seems to be working. All right, so the first part of this is going to be a little bit of photogrammetry cleanup. And right off the bat, let me get a drink of water. And then, because I had to do this myself, I forgot, it's been so long since I've done that, photogrammetry, that I had to go back and look at my photogrammetry series. Yes, I'm serious. And it was all relevant, at least the Metashape stuff, the photoscan stuff, because that's what I was using. I'm not going to sit through that, but essentially what we're going to kind of do is use ZBrush as a photogrammetry cleanup tool and then as a sculpting tool for facial blend shapes to animate a statue. I'm going to try to animate this statue here. Let me see here. Recording. So I had some old vacation photographs, and I took some pictures of some statues at the London Museum, and we went through and ended up, so for example, one example of these, let me see. Whoa. Basically this process here, take everything, take those 12 photographs or however many I had into photos, what is this, Metashape, go through, process the photos, export out the geometry and textures, and then we'll throw that into headshot, get ourselves attached to an animatable body and face, throw that back into ZBrush, transfer data, throw it back in there into Character Creator, and then we can animate the face and maybe even hop an eye clone today. We'll see how far we get. I'm not going to do something as, not that this was super complex, it was just an extra step of the face was separate from the hair and the body. So we won't do that, but we will at least start with something like this. So this is just the raw, well, first it starts as point cloud data. So well, here's the easy process here. You go over here and you click this button and you say add photos, and then you bring in the photographs that you took. Again, these are not great photographs. I was just kind of, a couple years ago on my phone was like, hey, maybe I'll use this, maybe I won't. And, they ended up working pretty good. So here is my, I guess you call a sparse cloud points. Then over here is my dense cloud points, and then here's colors. And the only reason I'm not going through this is that basically the workflow is add your photos, align your photos, build your point cloud, build your mesh, build your textures, export the file. It's super easy. There's only like 5 buttons to press. It's just sitting around waiting for it to process is basically all it is. And it doesn't take that long, maybe 10 minutes all in. And then that dense point cloud gets turned into a model with Polypaint colors or vertex color, and then also textured. So here it is with all the actual UV'd and textures applied. So with this model here, I'm going to say File, Export, Model, and I'm just going to dump this. I guess we'll just work right off our desktop. So we'll call this Julius FBX. We'll do a PNG. Well, vertex colors we'll go ahead and keep, and we'll hit OK. Hello. I will, then I'll take this into ZBrush and we'll kind of do a little bit of a cleanup. One thing we could do, I was planning on, actually, do I already have this exported? What I was planning on doing is animating like half of his face, where it's actually like a statue that's animated with half his face missing. I think that'll work. Another thing we can do in ZBrush, though, and I guess we'll talk about this process, is I can mirror this over and we can get a full reconstruction of his head. Granted, it'll be mirrored, so not exactly what the statue looked like originally, but probably a pretty close approximation. If you want to see, yeah, I guess we do. We got both of them in here. So on this ArtStation page, this takes you through the quick process of, number one, creating the statue, from photogrammetry and then animating it. And then also taking the statue head and then turning it into a real guy. if you're interested in that. So we'll link y'all to that page there. There we go. We're exporting the file now. Give me a second to wake up here. Hello, hello. All right, everything's all done. So let's hop into ZBrush now, and we'll go in here to imports. And ZBrush, in case you didn't know, it can import all sorts of cool stuff. One of those being FBX. There's our Julius FBX. Oh, also, my friend Matt Keen clued me in on, for example, the Smithsonian has a bunch of their models available for God, do I do an animate an Abraham Lincoln? I could. All you got to do is go over here and you can download, you know, Abraham Lincoln, full resolution OBJ, and I think they've got some other stuff in here. Collections. Let's see, fossils, prehistoric facts, artifacts, Abraham Lincoln, hands and head, and then it looks like, you know, maybe presidential portraits. See if there's any good clean faces in here. I'll go ahead and download this George Washington while we're talking, just in case, just as a backup here. We can play around with that in ZBrush. So we'll say full resolution 3D mesh scale. There we go. Okay, so here's our Julius FBX. We'll say imports. Give it a second. And it's bringing in, again, this has Polypaint and a texture. The texture, I think, will be a little bit higher quality because I don't know if it had really enough polys to support a super detailed Polypaint, although that's not bad. It's almost 800,000 points, so it's not terrible. I am pleasantly surprised. So here is our, of course, we got a big hole in the back. We can go ahead and fill this in with just rock. That's a cleanup pass we can do in ZBrush. And we can also do a little bit of cleanup down here on the base. And any, you know, also these little floating areas out here, easy way to get rid of those is Control-Shift-Drag over a little piece of your contiguous mesh. Do Control-Shift-A for visibility, grow all, which is under here in your visibility. Come on, Mike, you got this. Visibility menu, grow all. And then if you Control-Shift-Drag, these are all the little floating bits. So you can go geometry, modify, topology, delete, hidden, and now we just have our mesh. So let's go ahead and clean this up. Control-Shift, and we'll grab a select lasso and hold down Alt, and we'll just go through here. And again, just do a little bit of a cleanup, like the little ring around his head here. And again, these were not like, oh, perfect lighting, perfect camera, perfect focal length. These were just taken with a old Galaxy phone camera I had a couple of years ago, maybe a Note something or other. But then going back through those old photographs, it worked really, really well. Surprisingly, disturbingly well. So again, we'll say delete hidden. And in fact, while we're talking about this, let me go ahead and load up so we can do a compare and contrast. Was that under recording? Yes, London Photogrammetry. Prince Rupert. So I have a couple. Let's see. Files. Oh. Source animation textures. Bake. Oh, you know what? I forgot. I've been saving. Let's do load tools from project. There they are. Okay, so working, headshot, human, body only. Okay, let's see what this has in it. This is the other test we did. And again, the other test, the Prince Rupert test was, yeah, here we go. So this was a whole head here. I can kind of walk you behind the scenes here. So here's the original cleaned up ZBrush file. And this wasn't, this whole back area, I don't think it got. I don't think I walked all the way around it. So I basically just duplicated the head a bunch of times, or, you know, duplicated it off and then grabbed a little chunk of his curls and then just repeated the curls back here. Duplicated all that off, dynameshed it to get a loose envelope, ZRemeshed it, projected it back, and then got this full generally full reconstruction, then just repainted some of this stuff in here just to make it look contiguous. So a little bit of fancy footwork. And then at the end of the day, it was, here's the version with no head. This would be weighted to basically a static body where the neck, the spine too is most of this, and then the head is most of these verts, and then here is the actual head only. And this is the part that gets weighted and animated, you know, from the neck. So anyway, again, this was original. This is like a photogrammetry from like 12 old photographs, old phone photographs, and it worked pretty well, you know. So if I turn off the Polypaint here, you can see, you know, it's not the craziest amount of surface detail or anything like that, but all of this stuff is there, and it holds up pretty well once you get that Polypaint back on there. Or on in this case, I think we might even have a texture available. Maybe not, but anyway, yeah, so that's 16 million polygons. So let's go ahead and say delete all. And we'll do generally that process with this process. Now, the first thing I want to do is go ahead and clean this up. This one I used, do I still have it open? Yes. Agisoft Metashape. It took me about maybe 10 minutes of just waiting around, basically. Can ZBrush make noise simulation like Houdini? Simulation? I don't think so. But it does have noises, though. It's under Surface. Tool, Surface, Noise. And you can import your own alphas and or just use their noise and or use their noise generator. There's 3 options in there. So we'll get a little bit into surface noise when you do this rock. So let's go ahead, and the first thing I'm going to do is duplicate him off, and we're going to say geometry modify topology close holes. And when I say geometry modify topology, that's what I mean. We're in the tool menu here, and then instead of going in here to this menu, geometry modify topology close holes, I just use this custom menu. If you want to know more about that, I always try to shout this out early. Intro to ZBrush, new and updated here. So this will get you started in ZBrush if you're asking, what is this program? How is he doing this? Look at that video. And then on my ArtStation page, if you scroll down, here's Intro to ZBrush, and then all the What's New series right in a row with all the videos in there, so you can get caught up in all the new ZBrush stuff. So we filled these holes with geometry, and let's go ahead and, you know what, looks like I do have a little bit of floating here. Oops, looks like I need to reload this. I don't think it has different algorithms for this close holes. You can use your Z modeler brush if you hover over an edge, and then there is a close holes in here that is concave, which is basically this, or convex, which gives you a lot more options to close a convex hole. But I don't think there's a different algorithm for this close holes, no. And I think my chat's working. It just gave me an error message, and all the messages disappeared, but I'll keep an eye on that. Okay, so now that I've closed that hole here, geometry modify topology close holes. Give it a second. It should give me a different polygroup. There we go. And let's go ahead, and I'm going to turn off just for now this texture map here, and we'll just focus in on cleaning this up. So for this close holes, I'm going to go ahead and just sample like a medium brown, and then say Control Alt F. Come on. Interesting. Oh, let me turn this off. There we go. So I can just take the close holes operation and then just fill that with a, you know, a mid brown, because we're just going to be painting this up. If I want to, you can see when it closed holes, it just kind of did a like a sliding. It just kind of filled this in. I'm going to go through here with my move brush, turn on auto masking, and say turn on backface masking. And then I'm just going to kind of move these in a little bit, give myself a little bit of breathing room without, well, we can also isolate this, mask it, and invert that mask. That's all under your tool masking menu. And we're just going to kind of pull in a little bit of extra stone for us to work with. And I'm actually going to end up dynameshing and, or like a vox, like we just mentioned Houdini, like a voxelization process, which is Dynamesh and ZBrush, and then we'll ZRemesh and then project our original textures back from our original source model, so we get the highest res, nicest textures back. So There we go. We filled this in. I don't really know what the back of this thing's supposed to look like, but I'm just going to make a guess. We'll go ahead and fill this in with a little bit of a clay brush. So I'm just going to go back here. And again, if you want to protect the other parts of the model, Control-Shift-Tap that polygroup, Control-Tap to mask. If you want to know where the masking options are, it's down here underneath Tool Masking. So we've masked this, and then we can Control-Shift-Tap to bring everything else back, and then Control-Tap to invert that mask, or go hit this little invert button over there. And now we can just fill in without being hesitant or possibly destroying something. Okay, so now we've got a broken off chunk rock over here. And if you want to, you can also carve in, maybe use your Damien standard brush over here. There we go. So let's go ahead and I'm going to Dynamesh this. One thing you can do at Dynamesh is under Geometry, Dynamesh, you can drag from either the resolution slider or the picker onto your model, and you can see the resolution slider is updating based on the density of your model. I'm going to pick, 1232, turn off project, turn off blur, Dynamesh this result, and I'm going to use this as my kind of my base cleanup thing. So now I'm going to go in here. So I have Z-Add turned on for my standard brush. Let's go. Oh, and when I Dynamesh too, you can see instead of having the big closed holes geometry, now all my geometry is the same resolution, and I can go through here and kind of finesse this. So for example, I'm going to hold down Shift. I'm going to turn off RGB for my smooth brush. That way when I'm smoothing, it just smooths the geometry, not the Polypaint. Again, we're going to project our details or our texture back. So it's not a huge deal if we do that, but just something to bring up, I suppose. And then I'll go through here and some of these crusty edges. If you really want to get rid of crusty edges, hold down Shift and turn on Sculptures Pro. And that will allow you to eat geometry away. It'll be a little bit slow on this higher res mesh, but that'll really get rid of some of this crunchiness on some of these edges here. And what it's doing, if I turn on Polyframe here, is it's tessellating on the fly. So if I make a really big brush size and then hold down Shift, it'll be even bigger geometry. Smaller brush, smaller geometry. You can control that in the, where's that at? Modifiers maybe? No. I thought it was in Stroke. Yeah, Sculptures Pro. Adaptive and combined. If you want to know more about that, I'll bring this back up. Remember, here's your intro to ZBrush, and then Sculptures Pro is back here in 2018. I believe. I don't really remember. One of these. But you can also just go to my YouTube channel and say Sculptris. And this will bring up a bunch of Sculptor Space functionality. And it was 2018. Yeah. So the 2018 What's New series. Let's find that. That's the one with the Earthworm Jim. There he is. And then this whole playlist has a ton of Sculptures Pro stuff in there. So again, either this page, which is fairly easy to navigate, or the YouTube channel. Same basic stuff here. Let's see here. Control Shift, pick geo you want to adjust with Sculptures Pro. Yeah, so Control Shift, pick with Sculptures Pro, so that way you don't have to constantly go back and do. It is, for some reason, it's saying something went wrong. Try reloading the page. So if I don't catch your comment, I'm sorry. I'm having to reload the restream comments. Restream. Anyway, you can also notice it opened up some holes in here. So we're going to say close holes again just to keep it, and then hit Control W, make it all one polygroup. So we got this. We have hold down Shift, smooth, Sculptures Pro, eat away some of these edges, get rid of some of these edges here. And again, you can spend as much time finessing this part as you want, like really getting in there and doing some nice noise and making some nice rocky surfaces. I'll show you a couple noisy rocky things we can do. Also, I'm going to go in here with my inflate brush. I'll turn off Sculptures Pro. I'll get this whole area back here kind of inflated out, and then Control drag to re-Dynamesh. That'll revoxelize this result, and then it'll stick these all together. So we've cleaned up this little back area here, and now we can start painting. I'm going to just steal paint from this side. So I'm going to go into BX extractor. That's another, there's some really cool extractor things in here. Extract OR. what is that? ZBrush 2020. Check out the ZBrush 2020. Oh, and there's me cleaning up some photogrammetry with it. Exactly what I'm doing here. So with the extractor brush, I'm going to hit G. Let's make our brush size, you know, fairly big. I'm just going to steal some of this rock. So I'm going to hit G. I'm going to drag over this section here, and it's going to capture that swipe. It's also capturing not only the texture detail, but also the geometry detail. And actually, now that I mentioned that, I probably should have control-clicked the latest point in history before I did that. But in this instance, it should be okay. I didn't make any major changes. So we'll see if it works all right. Hello, Oxnash. Again, sorry if I miss any comments. Restream seems to be having a problem keeping comments open. So this is a CPU intensive task apparently, but once it's done, you can also change the resolution that you're capturing at. I think by default, I want to say it's like, or how wide the widest. Oh boy, I don't really remember where those settings are. Brush modifiers. It's all in the videos. This is where I go back and watch my videos. You don't have to watch mine. You know, Google whatever, whoever. Doesn't matter as long as you get the information. But again, it captured the texture. It captured the height information. So I should be able to, with this brush, go back in. We'll turn on RGB, Z-add, and then we can just kind of roll over our object and we can just paint with that busted rock here as kind of a way to sample. Now you don't have to use this stroke. There is a drag dot stroke, but as for our purposes, it's fine, right? I'm just going to go in and fill in some gaps and make it look like it was all taken out of the same rock chunk. And again, feel free to spend as much or as little time on this as you want. Ooh, looks like we got a little piece of ear back here. That's cool. We'll keep that. And I tried to do a test last night and I ran out of time, so I'm not sure how this is going to end up or if it'll work at all, but we'll give it a shot, and it should be fun. And there should be maybe some cool ZBrush stuff we can do along the way. So anyway, going through here and just kind of filling in the back with that kind of rocky shape here. And then if I want to kind of even out the tone a little bit, I can go in here and we can, like, say, sample this. I can just tap C on my keyboard, go in here, say, we'll keep the dot stroke, but we'll switch over to like alpha 23, and we'll just kind of brush on, oops, turn it to RGB, turn off Z-add. We'll turn our RGB intensity down just a bit. We can go through here and we can just kind of spray in, scrub in, you know, different values and different hues, and you know, there's some cool greens and yellows on here, all that good stuff. So you can kind of go through here and just make it look a little more contiguous and not so obviously captured after the fact or cleaned up after the fact. And again, this isn't a this isn't a true restoration by any stretch. This is a quick and dirty demo live stream restoration, but it's fine for our intents and our purposes. So we'll go through here and we'll just kind of blend these edges just a tiny bit. Again, make it look a little bit contiguous here. There we go. I mean, that's okay. You know what? We'll turn up the RGB intensity a little bit just to kind of get this done a little bit faster. I'm not trying to spend a ton of time in this step. It's just rock. Don't overthink it. So go through here. And again, we're just kind of blending edges more than anything. All right, so I think we're good enough for government work here. Now, what's next? You know what? Nah, should I watch that sizzle video again? Let's go. I just did this like a week ago and I don't remember. So yeah, we got our photogrammetry here. And then what are we going to do? We're going to take this out. Okay, we're going to throw this. Okay, we need to position this, and we're basically going to transfer human topology to this, and that human topology is already rigged and weighted and has facial animation that we can use to have this guy end up hopefully animating. We'll see how it goes. Oh, no problem. Cool. Yeah, I should have some more videos coming out. Speaking of that. Okay, so what else we got? I'm going to go through here. I'm going to say, let's go out of edit mode, always switch, Control N to clear my canvas, go in here, say import, and then on my desktop, I have a, oh, I should. There it is, restore. A CC neutral base FBX. So basically all that is going in here and saying load neutral base, file, export, exporting that FBX. And what that's going to allow me to do is position my stuff first. So we'll go ahead and load this in. So that way I don't have to worry about like scaling and positioning and parity. I can already get it pretty close. So here's the neutral base body. I'm going to go in here and I'm going to say append our working model here. He's pretty small. I'm going to go into deformation unify. Deformation is in your tools, deformation unify. That just makes it a basic, I don't know. It's weird when we're talking about different types of scale. Oh, actually, before I do this, this isn't our finished model. I skipped a step. Sorry, So here is our model, correct? But here's our original model. If we get in here close, you can see that the fidelity on this original model, it's a little cleaner, a little more accurate, right? So let's steal some of that. So with this model here, also, this is just a Dynamesh, you know? So what we can do is I'm going to control tap these points and, well, you know, let's go in here to edit, delete older, undo history. So it simplifies our undo history line. We can actually scroll back all the way through. We can even record back through underneath movie timeline. I think you can actually, wait, is it timeline modifiers? Wait, no, it's up here. You can record a history, forward and backwards history of your creation. It'll just kind of go through your history and record the model and move the camera around. Very powerful history undo in ZBrush. Now, in here, I'm going to control tap for this model that we're currently on, Dynameshed. Control tap this point in history, just so I have something to go back to. Here's a trick. Instead of Z-remeshing this, I'm going to drop this Dynamesh resolution down quite a bit and Dynamesh this. So we went from millions to hundreds of thousands. It'll just go a little bit faster. So now I can go in here and do a, you know, Z-remesh. I'll show you where that is over for y'all. Z-remesher. Target polygon count of, I don't know, maybe 19. Adaptive size down quite a bit. We just want mostly even quads. We don't have any polygroups on here, so we'll just hit Z-remesh. Hey, John, you. So now, yeah, so my Z-remesh will go a little bit faster. And what I'm basically doing is giving myself some simplified geometry, and because I have those control points stored in history, I can just do a quick subtool project history, which I have here in my custom menu, and we can project back our vertex color as well, if you want to know where that is. So instead of duplicating this off and then project all, I'd like to do a project history and project history brush, which we'll get to in a bit. In fact, if I want to go lower, we'll say Z-remesh half. There we go, even lower, project history. This is a nice simple base, and then I'm going to hit Control D to subdivide, project history, Control D to subdivide, project history. While I'm doing that, it's giving me back my geometry detail, Control D to subdivide, project history. So now we're back up to 500,000. We have all of that, and the cool thing about doing that with subdivision history now is, number one, I can go through here and change my primary and secondary forms and then update my details, but also underneath Z plugin, we can say UV master. I can't work on this natively since I have subdivision history, but I can say work on clone, and then I can go over here. If I want to, it's not symmetrical, so I'll turn that off. You can use polygroups. I can go through here and, like, you know, make this its own polygroup and this back piece its own polygroup. I'm not going to worry about that right now, but in this stage you could, and have polygroups on. Then you can just hit unwrap. The polygroups will go into their own islands, and then it'll unwrap it. So if I hit flatten, here's my new UVs. We'll unflatten. Copy UVs. We'll go back to our model with subdivision history. We'll say paste UVs, and now if we go down here, if you needed photogrammetry cleanup with UVs and you know, then you want to dump this into Unreal Engine and use it as a nanite mesh and it needs textures, that's one way to do it. So over here we can say texture map. Before we do that, go in here to UV map and tell it what size. So UV map 2048. You can crank up this map border, that's the bleed around your border edge, and then we can say new from Polypaint. Now you have, there's your texture with your new UVs. You can export this as an image. Just go in here to clone texture, texture, grab it, export it, and that is your new UV'd texture map transferred from your Polypaint. However, we're not done. Remember, the original model here had more detail, and we want to steal that. So on this model here, here's the history for this subtool. Control tap the latest point in that history. Go back to your model, do B for brush menu, H for history, or H for all your brushes that start with H. Then in here is a history recall brush. This is super useful, super powerful. And you can use it in conjunction with Sculptris Pro if you're doing like 3D print, you know, grabbing details from other 3D print models you've already decimated. It's super powerful, but this is history recall. 2 L's? Yeah, so ZBrush 2020 What's New has a bunch of information on history brushes and history projection and all that good stuff. So with our history recall brush here, we can go through and we can, from that original source, oh, here is this one. Control tap this point in history, and then back here, go into solo mode, and then BHR. Oh, it's RGB intensity up here. Is it not going to grab? It should. Unmask. Color. And it should even, I would oh, here's what we can do. I want this detail on the vertex color. So what I'm gonna do is hit Control D to subdivide. So now we're at 4 million. Let's do, now that we have more data for our polygons, for our verts that are getting this color transferred to them, we can go in here to Polypaint from texture. And then now, let's see, Control tap this point in history. I'm trying to remember. Actually, it doesn't seem to be picking up anything at all. What am I missing here? Solo mode. Everything's in the right spot. Nothing's masked. We have history. And it should work. I'm wondering what I'm doing wrong. Well, here's another thing we can do. Since these verts are in the same spot, I can go into BZP, the Z project brush, and then have RGB and Z sub and Z add turned on, and then we can use literally just Z project back, but let's also get rid of that history here. BZP, go out of solo mode maybe. Oh, you know what? I have texture on. Ah, that's what it is. Okay, sorry. So this model here, Control tap this latest point in history. It's got all the high-res detail. Go back to your model here, BHR. The texture was overriding anything I was able to do. So now when I go back to my model here, in fact, on this one we can Control D to subdivide one more time. Now we can grab that high-res detail. The cool thing about history project is that it's in Z project, so BZP, you have to hold down Alt to sculpt up to a surface and then let go of Alt to sculpt down to a surface. BHR, history recall, will do both at the same time, and it's capturing RGB and geometry. So we're getting our high resolution information back onto our sculpture, or ZRemeshed model with the UVs here. So we'll just go through and we'll get a little more information out of this. And I'm not going to go nuts on this thing. It's just rock, and this is just a demo, but just in case you needed to get that high frequency detail. Now I want to try it. I want to try a test. I'm going to go back down to subdivision level 1. I'm going to go back here and turn my texture on, and I'm going to say Control tap that point in history, BHR. Now that I know what I'm doing. Yeah, okay. So I don't need to grab necessarily the high, super high resolution geometry. I'm just grabbing from the texture map itself, and it seems to be working just fine. So that's what I was trying to do originally. I just forgot that, looks like a little error here. We need to pick, photogrammetry error we need to paint over, but this also works just fine. Oh, sorry about that. So go through here. Now, one thing you do want to be careful of is you don't want to paint like at an angle. So this is camera based, so you want to look right down at your model and just brush straight back on here. There we go. If you come in at like a glancing angle, what it's going to do is, it's camera projection. So if I go from the side, like the side of the nose here, and try to use this brush, it's going to pull this geometry across. So you want to avoid that. Again, just kind of go look right down at the model here, and don't skew geometry across the surface, basically. So yeah, now we're getting some of that nice, and again, this was not under ideal, what's it called? Like, it wasn't like great photographs and great lighting conditions. It was me on vacation just snapping a couple pictures with my old phone camera. But it still did a fairly admirable job, I think. Okay, good enough. Okay, we've got rocks. We've got Julius Caesar's head-ish. Now, just really quickly, let's say we wanted to do a full face reconstruction on here. Same exact process. So I'll duplicate him off. I'm going to say, actually, let's wait until we get this position. That'll be easier. So here's our updated model. We have UVs. It's all reconstructed, quote unquote. Let's go, actually, one thing too. Standard brush. We have that regular old stroke, alpha 23. If you don't want those points stored in history anymore, just control tap the latest and then control tap again. And then we can go through here. I'm going to hit C to sample, and then we'll just go through here and just brush this out. Again, there's some slight variations in here, so just keep sampling around and just kind of brush. And there we go. Then again, that's baked in lighting, not great. There's some tools out there that you can get rid of lighting, but I'm not going to worry about that. So we have this head here. We have our neutral base body. I'm going to position this head where character creators are expecting it, so it doesn't have to think too much, or I don't have to think too much setting it up in there. So I'm going to say append our model here. Okay, I'm starting to remember how this process goes. Again, deformation unify. We talked about that earlier. It's under your tools deformation menu. And then we'll go ahead and scale this down so that it fits. Let's turn on transparency here so we can kind of, and again, this part doesn't need to be exact at all. It just needs to be generally positioned so that when we take it into headshot for a second, and to get our animated face geometry, it'll be generally where it's expecting it. Again, doesn't have to be perfect in this case. That's good enough. Now, I don't need any of this other stuff. That was just for positioning, so I can delete it. But first, let's go ahead. Let's straighten him out a little bit. I'm going to duplicate him off. I'm going to say deformation mirror across the X. Can't do that with subdivision history, so I'll delete lower. We'll say mirror across the X. And if you want those back, just reconstruct. You don't lose any UVs. You don't lose any geometry. It's all right there where you want it. So now I have, let's hold down Shift, turn off this eyeball. There we go. We'll turn off transparent. And now I can see if I can't, line up his nose, line up his mouth, and get him, kind of mirrored in here. And then we can take maybe, let's turn off backface masking. Take this side of his nose here, move it in. He's kind of beefy, but we can, let's scoot him over just a little bit. I don't know. This is something you'll have to finagle. I'm not sure, but something like this would be what you would do. And then again, you can just Dynamesh this all together, ZRemesh it, project from your original source, just merge these together, store history, project your details back, and there's kind of a head reconstruction full face. We're not going to do that. We'll see if we can animate half a head. That'll be nice and creepy for Halloween, which is behind us now. Okay, let me see if we can cut up. Workflow, work on hard surface geometry, it needs certain values. Like this whole thing is pretty rough. If you like hard surface in the sense that, yeah, you can photogrammetry anything. But as far as like if you wanted like controllable edge loops for a hard like sub D model, you'd probably want to rebuild it, I'd imagine. worth doing deformation then contrast slider after decimation to punch out more detail before 3D printing. Yeah. If in this instance, yeah, you can. That's not a bad idea, especially if you're printing at scale and you really need to pop that. If you want to know, if anybody here wants to know more about that. Contrast, there is a deformation. So here, that was the 2021.5 update, I think. So there's a contrast brush and also a contrast slider that you can use under deformation here. Deformation, contrast slider if you want to enhance your details, as well as BC, where is that at? Contrast, somewhere in here. Somewhere in here is contrast delta, contrast target. There they are. Okay, so I think we're good to go. 2 million, that should be okay. I'm going to say export this visible as an FBX onto my desktop as Julius reconstructed. Hit enter. You can't see this screen, but it's basically I'm doing visible, binary, smooth normals, 100%, and that's it. Boy, that was fast. Let's make sure that worked. Let me go to my desktop here. Nope. Let me try that again. Cancel. This is always one of those live stream things where it's like, oh, let me see, let me do a delete other, where it works flawlessly for years, and then yep, these are the originals, moved them around, the subdivision history, all my geometry, texture map, no, we'll go ahead and turn that off, we don't need it, I think. Exports. There we go. It's like, it should take a couple minutes to export this much geometry. Put on some chapstick. Nice. All right. And then we're going to drag this into Character Creator, get a really quick mesh, transfer some of the data, then we'll head back into ZBrush to finish it out. We're just going to keep, it's basically, this is just transferring data is really most of this process. So again, here we have reconstruct, drop this in as a prop. I think I remember the steps. Sorry, I'm a little bit scattered recently. Capturing the information from the subtool just above that's been duplicated. In that case, what I ended up doing, you can do it two ways. You can do Z project, you know, in this case here, where it's like, hey, I want to do a Z project. Subtool project all is a Z project, so a visible subtool. What we were doing is going back to this model, control clicking that point in history, and using history project and the history recall brush, as opposed to Z project, project all, and the Z project brush. So no, it wasn't doing that, but yes, you could. Okay, so here we are. So let's go ahead and get head geometry onto this thing. So we're going to say we're going to go to mesh, start head generation. I wonder if it is a live stream resources thing. Like if I'm streaming, it has a harder time, or things are more crashy, because that seems to be the case. Cool. Now, normally what I'd tell you if you had our real scan in here, let's go ahead and pull this out so we can see a little bit better, is I would say, hey, go ahead and do auto detection and turn it up to 35 and really get something accurate. And in our case here, this is just such a mess that I'm just going to go through here and just do a best guess. So for instance, dot 1 over here is somewhere where his eyeball would be, like over here. Here's 2, 3, And then over here, we actually have a face. So I can say, okay, brow, 4, 5, 6. Back over here, eyeball, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. Where's 14 at? There's, oh, skip 14. 14. And then 15 right down the middle. 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. Sorry, this is boring. 21. Oh man, his lip is really in there. That might be problematic. 20, oops. 22, 23, and 24. And if you want to, you can keep going. If you want to be, okay, here's 25, 25, anything to kind of help it out. I think that'll be fine. So we'll go ahead and say head gen. Cross your fingers. Let's see. The question at topic, I was curious. Is it possible to print object if only two parts were merged and polygrouped as one piece? If you have, yeah, as far as 3D printing, if it's two solid objects and you send it to your slicer and the slicer goes through the geometry, all it's doing is taking a picture of the solid parts of your geometry and converting it to white in slices. So if it's two solid objects put together, it'll print just fine. So it's just converting your geometry to white image that gets sent to the LCD. If you're talking about resin printing, which is the only type of printing I do, so I wouldn't know about anything else. But yes, that should work just fine. But you can always, Vox slides it together using Dynamesh, or you can do a remesh by union or do a Boolean operation if you really want to fuse those objects together, which is generally what I do to keep things, oh, that worked, keep things clean. Monster Computer Home and do all this, RTX 4090 and the like. This one is a 3090. But yes, only Threadrippers, only monster GPUs. I'm not a very patient person. Okay, so, oh, speaking of, I don't know how, let me see. What is 3970X? I do have some workstation videos on my thing. So here we are in head gen. I'm just going to say effective area of the entire head. Why not? Let's go in here and refine the mesh. Again, this is so super dirty. Like you would use this normally for like real head scan data and really get an effective result. This is more, I don't know what this is going to turn out to be like, but we'll see. Again, his lips are very close together, so I'm going to have to move these out a little bit. So I'm going to say move. I'm going to turn off conform brush to source mesh. I'm going to hold down right click and move this down. I'm just going to pull this lip out just a little bit just to make this a little bit easier. And then I'll go back in here to smooth, turn conform back on. And then, let's turn intensity down. And then I'm just going to go through here and maybe smooth. Let's try clone intensity down. Yeah, maybe do a clone. So, okay, that didn't work too badly. The ear, let's see if I can't CC mesh opacity. Yeah, the ear's a little bit off. You know what, I should have put some dots around that ear, that's my fault. I'll go ahead and say conform to mesh off again. And again, everything I'm doing in here, I can absolutely do later. It's just I'm trying to get it close enough in here, and then I'm going to go back in here to clone, and that'll just kind of clone it back to a kind of a neutral head shape. So again, I don't care if the ear is all that well projected. That's just kind of a little bit extra. I'm more concerned about the front of the face here. So I'm going to say project. Oops. Let's go back here. Conforms to source mesh. Turn on project, and I'm just going to go through here and project all of this back to, let me see, make sure it's, yeah, okay. So it's moving the geometry to the surface of the mesh, basically. Again, I'm going to end up doing this. There's the ear back here. I'm going to end up doing this later in ZBrush as a more refined pass, but I'm going to get it semi-close in here if I can. So, and you know what, we'll call it good enough. We'll project this neck out. Hold down shift if you want to smooth or clone. And So again, this whole process is literally just so we can animate the statue. If you're not looking to animate your statue and you're just looking for cleanup, you skip all this. But this is just to have a little bit of extra fun with our photogrammetry. So I think this is good enough. Again, doesn't have to be perfect. None of this has to be perfect because we're going to be redoing this all in ZBrush anyway. So we're going to go ahead and say, great, attach to body. We'll do male, no mask, diffuse baking from our source mesh, normal from our source, texture size 2048 for the head, generate. Awesome, thank you. So this is Character Creator Headshot 2.0 with the mesh option. Oh, without Dynamesh, yes, you can do a Boolean operation if you want to combine two objects together. In fact, if you're doing for 3D printing, I would say don't Dynamesh. Dynamesh introduces a whole slew of problems, like little crevices or tight corners. It'll want to bridge geometry between them and give you non-manifold geometry and little twisted areas. So if you want to maintain your detail but combine two objects, do a Boolean operation, union mesh or remesh by union. Say plug is ZWrap, or is this their own version? This is their own version, but you can use Wrap or ZWrap 2023 or ZWrap. For this, I'm using this because I want to have the animatable head mesh. And we're also going to be using face tools to send everything back to ZBrush. Speaking of, we're getting a little bit in deep here. I'm trying to keep it light. I'm going to have some videos coming out this week that cover in depth this whole process of like using ZBrush to create these custom characters and have them animated in Character Creator and all the cool stuff you can do, as well as this one here, which is a 1 minute overview. So for example, and I think I live stream this. Yeah, this is on my channel. So I'm on Pixelatix channel now. I live stream on the first Thursday of every month on my channel, except for not this Thursday because I was lazy. Basically going through here and using a program we're going to talk about briefly called Face Tools. My live stream goes over this more in depth, and I'm going to have more in-depth videos on, you know, using, basically getting this type of animation ability for our meshes. In this case, it's going to be a statue instead of a vampire thing, but same basic process. So that's done. Let's go ahead and close this out. I can't wait to see what this did. Yes. Okay, let's go to scene. I'm going to go to prop, turn off our thing here. All right. Yes, 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 yes. This is so bizarre. Let's I just want to see. Okay, so we're going to select our character here. And we're going to go in here to motion, wrinkle check. You know what? Let's turn on wrinkles. I'm going to go in here to, I'm just going to put on activate generic expression wrinkles for him. I don't know what kind of expression wrinkles a statue would have. Technically none. So if I want to do this for real, maybe don't turn on expression wrinkles, but it's fun. That's part of the process. So activate expression wrinkles, check with expressions. And then now I can go in here and just kind of like, you know, do these different things and get the expression wrinkles dialed in. And then of course we can go in here and say motion, wrinkle check, dramatic male, and I'll fix his eyeball and hopefully his teeth. We'll see. I'm not sure. Cool. Character Creator Headshot. Yes. Is this from Epic Games Unreal? No. Do you typically use more point pairs for alignment or fewer points? You just enough. If you put in too many, it can sometimes be. Here's our statue. Ugh. So we'll fix some of this again quickly. I'm not gonna do a crazy. Let's see, pose, a pose. So let's send this all back to ZBrush here. We're gonna use face tools for that. So we're gonna go in here to, and again, face tools is what I use for that hyper real vampire guy. If you want to know more about that or this entire process or posing out, if you have just a generic, hey, I have a ZBrush character I want to animate. That's this whole ZBrush post tool series right here. That's on my YouTube channel. But again, right here, you can get more information on that. And then also YouTube playlists is usually where most of the chunk videos fall. So again, well, actually home might be your better bet because it has playlists here you can see, but then also videos and live streams that have all that data. So, sorry, information. So let's go face tools. I'm not going to go into depth in this, but we're going to say all wrinkle sets. And let's go back to ZBrush, make sure nothing in here is going to cause any problems for me. I think we're good. I'm going to go in here to Preferences, Go Z, Clear Cache Files. I don't think I need... Let's save this just in case. Save as, because this is nice. On our desktop, call it backup. I'm going to say, because I don't need this taking up memory, just delete all. You know, we'll save this one as working. Sorry. Put in so much time doing our crappy reconstruction. Delete all. Okay. I think we're good. Okay, so back here, we'll say create new 2K resolution is for every body part. And in this case, the head's getting a full 2K. If you want, you can go in here to subdivision level 7 4K texture transfer, but that's okay. Normal details is fine. All of our wrinkles will say Go Z. And that's going to throw all of this information over into ZBrush, and we can have fun changing our, or fine-tuning our expressions and our expression wrinkles. I'm not going to be doing anything crazy on him. I'm just basically seeing if it works at all. And what I think I'm going to have to do is morph the side of his face that has like an eyeball on it, morph that so that it stays consistent between expressions, so he doesn't have like a little weird winky broken piece of stone over here, but it should be pretty straightforward. Oh yeah, so do you typically use more point pairs for alignment or fewer points? Basically enough to where it knows what you're trying to do. Like the ear that I messed up, I should have put like a couple over there at least. But around the eye, 4 is usually plenty. If you try to put like 16 dots around the eye, it's too much, you know. So just enough to generally get the points pulled where they need to go, but not too much to where it's overwhelming, you know, it trying to move the points for you. It's possible to use CC4 skin details to project to ZBrush's geo noise for 3D print. Yeah. In fact, if you're using face tools, for example, it will send over your poor details as a detail layer that you can turn on, and then it's just geometry that's being displaced, and you can bake that to your base model after you pose it out, and it should work fine. And like we talked about before, instead of over cranking with contrast, you can just take, I'll show you in just a second, once this is done, you can take that detail layer and over crank it in the layers, if you want. Looks like we're having a slight problem with, so it's Facebook that was giving us issues. Sorry, Facebook. But I have YouTube and Twitch. So here it is. It's basically taking the base head topology, bringing it over with all the expressions, all the expression wrinkles. So whenever his eyebrows go up, it's going to blend in a normal map for these expression wrinkles. And then when I send it back to Character Creator after I mess around with it in ZBrush, it'll rebake any changes I've made back to those, you know, deconstructed shapes. And then it'll be all bespoke. And I can paint in new teeth, I can paint in new eyes, I can move his eyeball, I can move his teeth around. I should be able to do everything, I think. I don't know. I mean, I've done heads before. I've done a full head statue before. If you're just joining us, this process right here. So I know it works. I've done it. While we're waiting for the stuff to load, we can just watch this. So basically, remember, photogrammetry from old phone photographs. Go through here, do the headshot process. Project and bake, which it does for us, but we're going to be doing the next step, which is manually projecting more higher fidelity detail. There we go. So we're done. So here is our base head. Oh, good thing I kept it. Load tool. Back up. Because I need it. Duh. Append. Our backup here. So face tools did move the head just a slight bit, but that's okay. All we got to do is take our backup here, our model, basically, turn on transparency, hit W. I'm going to move this into place and move scale, rotate, whatever you need to do. It had to make it compatible with its human geometry, but we're going to get our details back if possible, just playing with our base head. Let's also go in here to Z plugin. There is a plugin that's very important. We're going to go in here to face tools. So the detail layer is turned on by default. So I'm going to go ahead and hide our backup projection mesh. We'll go back to our skin head. So this is what face tools sent over. And if we go down here to our layers, again, if we had assigned poor detail, which I think it may have done automatically, I don't know. It basically has the details on a detail layer. So if you had poor detail, it would send it over for you, and then you can go down here and you can just over crank it for your 3D print, just on this bottom slider back here. I'll set that back to 1. I don't need the detail layer on, so let's go ahead and turn that off. And I'm going to modify our base model first to make sure everything's working okay. Let's turn on diffuse. And so you can see this diffuse actually did a pretty good job. So here's the diffuse transferred to the UVs. I am going to update this with new Polypaint basically. So we're going to go again one more time. UV map 2048. We can crank up the UV map border. We'll go in here to Polypaint from texture, mRGB mode on. So that way our texture should be off. Now that textured information is transferred to our base Polypaint, and then we can just modify this. I don't need to see eyelashes. This eyeball immediately I need to move because it's freaking me out. Let's go into solo mode. Let's hold down Control Alt, hit W, and I can say this thing can just kind of, I don't know, go up here somewhere. Down here, I don't know, somewhere out of the way where I don't need to see it. Cool. And the other cool thing with, I guess, with the eyeball too, is we don't need all this color information. So I'm going to say, I guess we could even try and transfer it from our back. What does his eye look like? Oh, just like stone. So let's go back here. Let's get our eyeball. And let's say fill here. And I can, oh, looks like we need to reposition this eyeball too a little bit. Let's scoot this up. Actually, before I start moving stuff around, let's put this eyeball back. Better? Better? We need to close that eye. This is so weird. Okay, again, we're going to see to sample. We'll just fill this. And do we still have that brush? BX tractor, yeah, it's still built in, so I can just go through here. I'm going to turn off, we'll leave the ad on, I guess. We'll just go through here and we'll just paint some stone on that eyeball, and then we'll come back in here, C to sample, standard brush, dot stroke, alpha 23, RGB, and we'll just kind of, and you know what? That's a little intense on that detail. I'm going to hold down Shift, turn on RGB, off RGB, Z-add on, and we'll just kind of knock that back just a bit. So there's his stone eyeball. Kind of probably should do the same thing for the teeth, right? So here's his lower teeth. I was going to say Control D a couple times, fill. Looks like this tooth isn't actually sitting in there nicely, so I'm going to turn on X symmetry, go into our brush, auto masking, topological range 1.5, and just go in here and just grab the teeth and just kind of pull them in. Oh, guess we're way off symmetry. You can turn on local symmetry if you want, but that's fine. Same thing for the base upper teeth. Control D a couple times, fill. This is fine, and I mean, if you want to, you can say let's sample a slightly lighter color, and we'll turn on X symmetry with LSIM turned on. And does that move the needle for anybody? Having beautiful stone teeth, I don't really care that much, but while we're here, might as well do it, right? Okay, he's got stone teeth. Same thing for the tongue. Solo, darker, fill, Control D a couple times, get some more information, a little bit lighter, just so it doesn't stand out. We also need to do, and again, we're doing this all just modifying the base, right? So if I go back here to the eyeball, I do want to move, let's actually take his head here and just move this up a bit. Let's turn off topological. So it's a little more performant here. I need a little more lower lid Nice. All right. Now, this eye over here needs to be closed for the base. So luckily I have polyframes in here I can use. So hold down Control Shift. I'm going to mask and invert that. We don't even have to stay at the highest. We can drop down to like subdivision level 1 or 2 or whatever and just go through here and we'll close this eye. And we'll Control Tap to invert that and we'll close this eye. Control Tap to invert that. There we go. Shh. Go to sleep. And then that way, we have this good to go. And you know what? For the ear, let's go ahead and, I mean, this is supposed to be like a busted stone ear. So we'll go through and we'll bust that up a little bit more. So subdivision level 2, everything's working okay. This should just be completely busted. So let's start transferring some of that detail back. Here is our subdivision level 6, and like I said, I'm going to hold down Shift, turn off everything except for this base head here, and then we're going to transfer the detail from our actual photogrammetry original. Let's make extra sure that this is close, like pretty close. I don't want it too far off. Y'all's eyes might be better than mine. Is that looking close? Any slight rotations we need to do here? Looking for those landmarks. Mouth, eyes. That nose is a little bit weird. We'll call it good enough. So now, this backup selected, Control Tap that point in history because I prefer that. We can turn off that visibility. We can go back here, turn off transparency. BHR history recall brush. We're going to do RGB up to 100, Z add up to 13. You're going to see we do have, if I go in here, ooh, that reminds me. Let's go down here to display properties. If I turn on double, it might be easier to see some of the geometry, like the nostril. I didn't know what to do with it. So I can go through here, hit W, or go into move brush, turn on backface masking, and I can just kind of pull this through. Actually, I guess let's turn backface masking off. Let's hit, you know what, on this, I can just smooth it out, I think. Let's go subdivision level 3, and I'm just going to smooth this out. Because again, the nostril technically on the statue was just filled in. So I'm going to go back to my clay brush, for example. If you want to, we can turn off Sculptris Pro here. Or not Sculptris Pro, but turn off our Polypaint colorize. And we can just kind of fix some of this stuff. This nostril is a little bit, got a hard edge around it. We'll go ahead and smooth that down. This corner is not great. It's not terrible though. I am still fascinated that this thing actually kind of worked. And again, I think this nostril was also plugged. So we'll go ahead and fill that in. Okay. So again, we stored these points in history already. So let's turn on our Polypaint. You know what? Let's stay at like subdivision 3 or 4. We'll go to BHR. We'll do one pass where we just do the geometry. Just to make sure things aren't like crazy off in the important areas. Okay, we're actually good. I'm actually also going to turn on backface masking for this history recall brush so I don't accidentally pull like the backs of eyeballs through the mesh or anything like that. Smooth this out here. Okay, so now what we're doing is, yes, headshot did manage to get us pretty decent transfer of a arbitrary crazy stone mesh onto a working human, and that is no small feat, especially since it did it in just a few minutes. It didn't require a whole lot of effort on our part. However, we do want to get a little more specific with our original here, and that's all we're really doing. Now, normally in a normal workflow, God, is that far off? Damn. I need to be a little closer. You know what? That's actually good for me to think about too. Instead of going into transparency mode, just have that off so you can see a little bit better where the overlaps need to be. Again, we're just trying to get it super close to the original if we can. And I know I moved like his lip out here, and you don't, here's another thing too. Some of these features I want to keep. I don't want to actually project back to exactly you know, this mesh because it's not that useful, but I do want to transfer the texture, and the color transfer is much more forgiving than the geometry one. The color will transfer to whatever you got there. The geometry kind of needs that geometry where it needs to go. So this is kind of a little bit more of a finesse thing. If you want more finesse, speaking of, hit Y on your keyboard, go in here and use your transpose line. That'll give you a little more fidelity in your moves, scales, and rotates than the Gizmo will. Okay. Yes? Maybe? Okay, good enough. Control tap that point in history, hide it, go back here, BHR. Okay. Yeah, much better. Okay, so this is already much closer to the original here, so I'm a little less afraid. I'm just transferring what's essentially a little more high fidelity surface detail. Now, the surface detail, it did bring it over in a layer, so it's not like it didn't have it. It just put it in a separate layer for you, which is nice, but we're just going to bypass that layer and just go in here and transfer it back. Now, again, we're on subdivision level 4, so we're kind of getting, I guess, what you can consider primary and secondary. Let's close these up a little bit more. BHR. And remind me, I do need to go into the mouth bag and eye sockets and paint those because they are going to be white, if I had to guess. And we don't want it too obvious. Again, not that this is like super high fidelity or anything. This is what I'm trying to fit into a 2-hour live stream flying by the seat of my pants. Ooh, that lip. This is another instance where I'm like, you know what? I kind of like this lip a little better than the actual one on the statue. It's just going to read and behave better, so I'm going to leave that alone, and we're just going to transfer the color to my new lower lip. We're not going to take that kind of sunken in bottom lip. Now, what I can do is I can, you know, go in here to my standard brush, have RGB off, turn Z add on. I can put like a little stone texture on here, and then I can go in here and I can move this back, you know, just turn on topological and be like, hey, I want his lip to be a little more Julius Caesar like this, and I can just change that base shape, but I don't necessarily need to project it back, is all I'm saying. If that makes sense. So I can fudge it as needed, whatever makes sense. So going back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. Over here, again, that busted ear, I don't have to necessarily project back perfectly. I can just go through here and we'll just kind of do a little bit of a busted ear sculpt. We'll transfer the color and then we'll sculpt on it. This might actually work. Like, I don't want to promise anything because it might fall apart at the last minute, but there is a chance this could work. Sorry, there's a lot of geo packed in here because, you know, these are meant to be functioning eyeballs and eyelids, you know, so, and I'm trying to make it do something that it is not designed to do. Sorry about that. And then this poor ear back here, we'll just go, you know, we'll go down here to subdivision level 1, smooth all this out. 2, smooth. I know this probably isn't the most thrilling thing to watch, but it's all part of this weird process, right? Getting our volumes back. Now, the only iffy thing is that on the subdivision level 1, these hard edges right here are probably not gonna, because again, I'm just taking face geometry that has the functionality that we need, but along with that comes the caveat that, like, well, I can't change the vert order to take advantage of all the cool stuff I'm getting, but I really want to change the vert order because of these crevices and cracks and stuff aren't really all that compatible with, you know, a broken in half statue, because the topology that's getting it to work is meant for a fully functioning human being, not a broken statue. So of course there's going to be a little bit of give and take, or set your expectations accordingly. It's not going to work miracles. You just got to kind of roll with the punches if you want to inherit the functionality of something that wasn't meant to be functional in that case. But I think we'll be okay. So anyway, we got this head projected back. I think we're pretty good. I can continue. So I think now that we're close, I am kind of tempted to be like, okay, I'm close enough. Let me go in here and do a history project all, but I think it's probably going to cause more problems than I want to admit. So I'm going to go back up here to subdivision level 6. I'll do another pass. Again, I'm not overly concerned about getting the stone detail on my character. It's more about transferring that texture over, because that's what's doing the real heavy lifting, if I'm being honest. Not necessarily the model, but yeah, we'll do a little bit here. And then we'll transfer the color, which should be really fast, I hope. Fingers crossed. It's like I said, it's much more forgiving than the geometry transferring. And this is part of the thing too, where if you're not doing a live stream and you want to do a really nice job, then spend some time doing this. Spend a couple hours really doing a nice reconstruction, or really getting better photographs is probably, you know what? Out of all these steps, my first suggestion would be do a better job capturing the object in the round than I did, which is, you know, I had to dump most of my photos and there wasn't that many to begin with, and it just causes a lot of extra cleanup work. So better photos is step number 1, and then everything else past that is a lot easier. Okay, so we skewed some geometry here. That's okay. Now, okay, transfer color. RGB 100%, Z sub off. BHR, by the way. So we can go through here, and now we're just going to switch back over to skin shader. And now we're just going to go through here and transfer the color. And again, since we're not transferring geometry, we can be a little, it is still camera based, so you still got to move this around, but and it looks like even this step, I don't know if it was really all that necessary. I think the original transfer actually did a surprisingly good job. I'm just transferring back from the original just because I know, going through headshot, who knows if it, it's hard to say if it did a good job or not, but just looking at the results, I'm not seeing a ton of change here. So I think it actually did a pretty bang up job. Kudos. Now, here's where it also gets a little tricky. In the Prince Rupert statue example I was showing you all earlier, that was basically just the head, and the rest of this was another object weighted to the spine too and the head joint. This one, I'm not going to have any super clear lines. Let's isolate this and just project back, and then Control-Shift-Drag. So that's the bad thing. I could try to export this out like the rest of the bust and get it to work, but I think I'm going to run out of time. So we're just going to keep moving forward. You'll have to ignore that. Should still be good for a laugh, just not the fully realized, full floating bust. We could, what I could do? I could put a big old prop right here, Roman column, and we could throw that in. That should be pretty easy to do in ZBrush. Okay, so we got this thing all transferred back. Let's turn everything back on here. And we don't even need this backup anymore. We've transferred all the information from it. So let's go ahead with this. We'll say save as. And, oh, don't do a save as. If you do a save as, it'll rename things. You don't want to rename things. So we're going to go to File, Save As. That's a Z project. And we'll say backup. If you haven't noticed, I tend to move pretty fast and loose in these live streams. So, okay, we got all this. We don't need this. Everything else is looking correct. Let me make sure. Oh yeah, I need to go in here. Let's go into solo mode. Yeah, we also need to fix the expressions. You know what? And I'm going to do all this in one pass. Normally I'd be like, hey, send the base back over, and then we'll send the expressions. I'm going to do all of that at once here. So for these teeth, I think I can do this. I'm going to go into solo mode here, turn off X symmetry. You know what? Let's just go into our move brush. I'm going to just push, oops, turn off topological. I'm going to just push this over, and this is on the base teeth, so I'm hoping this is totally janky. You could also do an opacity mask maybe, but I'm not going to bother with that. Lower teeth, again, just pushed over slightly. Because I still want teeth in there. I just don't want it to poke through. Okay. Eyeballs positioned correctly. We can change the material. Actually, that we might have to hop into Photoshop. Yeah, we'll burn that bridge when I get there. The other thing I want to make sure is I'm going to hold down Control-Shift. Oops. Select the base head. Control-Shift here, and we'll go into solo mode. Control-Shift drag. Control-Shift. Actually, the mouth bag looks a-okay. I mean, it's dark red, but I can live with that. Let's see. Let's get rid of these and the ears. That's folded over, but that's the hidden eyeball. I'm not overly concerned about that. You know what? Let's just sample. Let's say C sample, color, RGB back on. We'll paint it vaguely instead of like a darker red, humanish. We'll go through here and we'll make it vaguely stonish. Good enough. Okay. Yeah, nice. Okay. This might look a little bit like he's got some emo lip liner on. So I'm gonna maybe lighten this up just a tad here. And again, this is all the baked in lighting too. And again, there's nothing wrong with emo lip liner. It could be a good look for him, but I just don't want it to be super distracting. So I'm just going to go through here and just kind of try and blend it a little bit. Again, you can use your polygroups to your advantage. Yeah, like this dividing line right here. Let's go ahead and just RGB intensity up. There we go. Just kind of blend this in just a tad. Here. Yeah, this part. I mean, I think it will look like lipstick, but again, that's fine. He's got statue lips. Okay. Now let's talk expressions. So over here we have our face tools. We do have diffuse on, but then I turned it off manually. We'll go ahead and just turn diffuse off. There's also, you can turn on range. Watch my live stream or watch my future videos. Smash that like and subscribe button. It'll be on my channel, not this one, but hey, smash the like and subscribe button on this channel too. It's a good one. So, okay, we've turned diffuse off. We still have our Polypaint. Our base is all updated. We've done so much work. I want to make sure I didn't break anything unintentionally. Okay, so let's go ahead and look at our brow raise expression. This is going to go into our layers and turn on the brow raise with the expression wrinkles for the brow raise. I assume it built in. So if you want to look at that, so here's our brow raise. It's already set to record. However, before I do that, I'm going to go back to the base head with all, and I want to store these vert positions. So we've been doing this a lot, right? So here's my base head. Control tap this point in history. Go over here to brow raise. Now remember, when he raises his brow, I don't want that stone side of his face to move, right? The cool thing is I can put those verts back by going to B for brush, M for brushes to start with M, and then G for my morph brush. So in 2023, morph brush works with history recall as long as the vert order is the same. So here's the vert order for my regular face. Here's my expression brow raise, right? He has a very subtle brow raise. I can go through here and I can morph all these vert positions back on this side of the head. So all the stone stuff I don't want to move. I can simply just morph them back. So this will all stay static. And I'm going to have to do this for every expression. I know, not the most exciting thing, but still good functionality. And the end result should be entertaining. There we go. Now, of course, you know, here's the brow raise. So we want to go through here and say, okay, apply a mask for where the expression wrinkles are for the brow raise. It's all right in here. So I want to go through here with my damn standard 02 and say, hey, let's really cut in some detail for this brow raise. And or if I want to go through here and say, hey, when Julius Caesar's statue brow raise goes up, I want to go in here with my standard brush. We'll sample a dark gray right here. We can literally paint in a little occlusion, a little blood pooling, or whatever that I would normally do for a face, we could do for a statue. I don't know that it's going to be that effective, but essentially all of this information will get baked in for that brow raise. So we'll go ahead and turn that off. And we can also unmask. No, it unmasked for us. Next, eye squint. And that's it. That's all we're going to do for the next however many things. So let me get caught up here. Cool. Yeah, we might share the same gene pool. So BMG. Actually, somebody sent me, was it on Facebook? They were in Wales and they found, so here's an interesting thing. On my dad's side, I think I've got Croatia. I mean, I think it's my name. It's spelled CH, but I think originally it was spelled Pavlovic and had maybe a little line over it, like how they spell it in Croatia. And so it was pronounced Pavlovich, like it's spelled now in here in America. But it was originally Pavlovic or Pavlovich with the C. Anyway, that's on my dad's side for my last name. However, my mom, according to my DNA, my mom is mostly from the British Isles, I suppose, and I have a ton of Welsh. I don't have a ton of Eastern European DNA. I have a ton of Welsh DNA, so I'm kind of a Welshman, I suppose. Anyway, they sent me a picture of a statue that looked just like me in Wales. I'll have to go see if I can find that again. Let's see, BMG. Well, by the way, while I'm pressing these, it's just simply going over, turning up that expression to 1, and then BMG. And then I'm just going through here and, morphing these areas back that I don't want to move because it's stone. Now I do want maybe a little movement over here. That's not too terrible. I don't want it to stretch too much. So, maybe this over here is fine. We'll kind of fudge it just a bit. Cool. Then chin up. And again, I'm not even sure if this is going to work. We'll see. That one's good. I blink. This should be a good one. Would you use CC4 base mesh for a portfolio, or would you make your own base mesh? I would absolutely use CC4 base mesh for a portfolio. I've done enough characters in my life where I don't need to prove to somebody I can you make a base mesh? Sure. Here's a fun fact. As a character artist, and this is, also in this eye blink, again, you can go through here and you can fix this eye blink. I actually did a pretty good job. Let's go to solo mode, make sure there's no issues. We can also clean this up. So I'm going to hit C standard here. It's always so funny too about character art where it's like, okay, to be a character artist, you have to be anatomy and bodies and base bodies and male and female and human, blah, blah, blah. I can count. And again, this is just me. I don't end up doing a ton of that work. Like when I first started in the character industry, or doing character art, it was face masks and helmets and pride stickers, and then jerseys. And then when I went to go work on characters for like DC Universe Online, I didn't do any of the base bodies. I did a ton of boots and pants and shorts and you know, maybe a little bit of creature work and general sculpting, but the lead handled all of the, you know, with along with the tech rigging team, base bodies, the small, medium, and large, male, female, all of that stuff was that wasn't like, it wasn't like, oh, we're gonna make 10,000 characters for this game. Everybody start from a sphere and then make a character. It's like, of course not. And also, character artists, senior and below, you're not gonna do any character work. You're not gonna do any anatomy character work. You're gonna be making a ton of gear. Your mileage may vary. There may be pipelines and tools and workflows where you do hand make beautiful from sphere character stuff. I think it's a good exercise, but as far as your ability to do that, I think it is highly overstated. I would say for most character artists, maybe, don't quote me on that, I would say most of them don't do any anatomy, hardly ever. Weird, huh? Now you need to have an understanding of how things move, and anatomy is just a good thing to learn because it makes you a better artist in all sorts of ways, and it has all the fundamentals of volume and pattern and repetition, and all the basics of all the cool things you learn in art are found on the human body. So it's totally cool to learn. Do you really apply it that much as a character artist day to day? Not in my experience. So back to your original question. Would you use a base body? Of course. I use a base body day to day because I'm a production artist. I'm not a fine artist, you know? Kind of like being I don't know, the difference between like a painter for a gallery versus a painter for magazine covers. You know, it's like if you're painting and your hours are important to get paid and put food on the table, you're going to use whatever means necessary to get that done fast and effectively. And you're going to start with a base body. Plus, base bodies are awesome for lowering that barrier to entry. Yes, I could probably, with 6 to 8 months of setup and blood, sweat, and tears, go in and figure out, okay, I'm going to go into Maya, I'm going to set up my left and right shapes, I'm going to go in and do all my blend shapes, I'm going to set up all my set-driven keys so that when this blend shape happens, it pulls in this normal map and that goes here, and I could set up my own system. Of course, it would probably break a lot. It probably wouldn't be that robust. It certainly wouldn't be this fast. I'd have to do everything manually. I'd have 10,000 files, all handmade, hand-named, etc., to go in and achieve what I did in 90 minutes during a live stream doing this type of thing, right? Oof. No, thank you. Not for me. I like tools that lower the barrier to entry. Granted, there's nothing wrong with knowing how to do all that stuff. It's admirable, but it's a little unapproachable, right? Okay, so we got the eye closed. I think we've done BMG on this side here, and then we'll go over here to jaw open. We'll see how this jaw open goes. Yes, this is live. Okay, so here's his mouth open. I think it'll work. Oh, another thing you can do is you can turn on update eyes, teeth, and tongue for this pose. I can, you know what? I can adjust that with morphs later, but on this jaw open, I actually do want to go in here and pull that in slightly. Okay, so back here, again, BMG. I do want to allow the stone a little movement over here just because I know the jaw is going to have to kind of move into place, but I just don't want a ton of movement back here. And I don't know why I'm nitpicking what part of the stone moves. It's not like it really matters. Brow drop. Can you output a control rig after setting up blend shapes in CC? There is an export option down here. Export OBJs for your wrinkle sets and your expressions. I don't know that they have a control rig available off the top of my head. I'd have to look up that. BMG. What are we at? Browse drop. And again, while you're doing all these expressions, obviously feel free to go in here and, you know, fine tune these wrinkles and stuff. It's all super powerful. It's super easy to do. Doing it traditionally as part of a character system is not so easy to do. And here it is. So I'd say take full advantage of it if you can. Nose sneer. I know this is like the super boring part. So here's the nose sneer expression wrinkles built in. And again, we'll get rid of it on the stone side, and then maybe we'll go in and enhance it on the on the face side here. And like, again, it will bake out your Polypaint. So any nuanced Polypaint you want to put in there, like I said, blood pooling, AO, all the stuff we did in the vampire live stream. And again, I'll have more videos on that. I'm literally making them as we speak. So we'll go back in here to our standard brush. We'll turn off this alpha, RGB intensity up. We'll sample a slightly darker color here, and we can go in here and enhance these nose wrinkles with a little bit of Polypaint in here. And like I said, and these are all generic wrinkles too. These are all just pulled from their default shapes. You can bring in, they have their own actors pulled from scan data that you can borrow their wrinkles from. That's what we did in our live stream. You can make your own from reference. Like you saw my face in that video. I showed you all that, right? This video. I took 4K video of my face for all these expressions and then did them and then put them all so they're all stacked next to each other, and I just use that as reference. So anyway, update these however you see fit. Maybe a little damn standard O2 if you want to carve these in more, or you know, maybe we'll chisel this side out. Whatever you want to do. Mouth frown. Cool. Yeah. Yeah, more cool stuff to come. Punchy Ninja, I hope. BMG. I'm sorry, this is so boring, but it's all got to be done. We got to make this weirdo half Julius Caesar head work, man. Good enough. Next. Neck tighten is cool too, because when I tighten my neck, you can go as crazy with this as you want, but obviously the default neck tighten is, so here's me kind of doing the expression wrinkle here. On the neck itself, it's just a very slight, you see my platysma is like going nuts. So you can literally, like, whatever that neck tighten shape is, just go through here and sculpt it. So here, just sculpt in. So here's me doing that layer for the neck tighten, making it all platysma-y. And then when you send that back over, whenever he moves his neck and stuff, that stuff will pop right out. So totally cool, I think. But again, BMG, I'm not doing any of that today. I'm just going through here and morphing stone back. Next, mouse smile. And there's no guarantee this will work. This could be just a lot of talking and brushing for not a lot of payoff. So, oh boy. Let's go through here and move this smile out a bit. And in fact, let's take this here, mask it, invert it. I'm going to pull that lip down just a bit. Smile is one of those too, where if you want to get a very specific smile in, you know, obviously go in and make it. Let's hold down Shift, it's just Z add on for my smile. This is where I might go want to grab some reference and go in here and get a little nuanced shapes in here, because it looks a little clowny right now. Let's see, brush. Topological's off, okay. Good enough. Okay, so BMG. Let's make sure that this side isn't overly influenced. Because again, this original topology with all the shapes is expecting an actual human face over here, so there's a lot of movement that goes in with the cheeks. Excuse me, speaking of, let's go in here with our standard brush, RGB off, Z add on, and we'll put in, there we go. We can put in a little bit of this smile line. We'll kind of flesh that out a little bit. Yeah. And then back here, Z add, back. All right. I think that's pretty good. You know what? Let's take this up a little bit higher. Next, cheek raise. Almost done, everybody. 2 more to do. We'll send it all back. And the video series I'm doing as we speak is basically, I had a live stream on this, but it was kind of haphazard, obviously, because it's a live stream. I'm doing a very step-by-step method for this goblin creation, basically. So, you know, starting from this and then going in and using ZBrush to like detail out the body, go through and bake stuff out in Substance Painter, update the body. Basically, this whole process right here is coming very soon, step by step. BHR. And the other cool thing too that this pipeline allows me to do is, not BHR, BMG. What this allows me to do is stay in ZBrush, doing the fun stuff. You know, when I'm doing this type of character work, what it used to be was 99% of it was me wrangling files and looking at low-res verts and moving them into place and making sure they didn't have any double transforms, and then saving files and placing them and organizing stuff. Now, most of my job is spent just in ZBrush, sculpting wrinkles and really fine-tuning what I want my character to be. So it's a very freeing program that allows me to stay in ZBrush and do the fun stuff. BMG. And not have to go and do all the under the hood back end stuff that is necessary and good to know, I guess. But boy, it is not it is not artistically compelling at all. Craftsmanship, sure. And there's an argument to be made for that, to really go in and fine tune, you know, what you need to do for that. But as far as just like purely having fun and staying in ZBrush, okay, we're all done. We're going to send this all back, updated. Everybody cross your fingers that it all works fine. And at this point, you probably want to save just in case. It's going to come in right on time. Okay, let's go update to character creator. So all of our Polypaint for our expressions, all of our wrinkle update, all the sculpting updates we did is all going to go back to character creator. It's going to bake out all of our, so we did a base update. We updated the base mesh and the diffuse. 2048 is fine. We did the head, teeth, tongue, and eye. We did wrinkle with diffuse updates. We're not going to generalize them. 2048 is fine. We did all of the expressions. Update. We'll send it all back. And that's it. We are done. Hour and 44 minutes. Now, like I said, getting the rest of that base to work might be a little tricky. That's kind of what we did here. So again, this whole bottom, everything except for his little face up there at the top is all just basically it's a clothing piece technically, because I transferred the skin weights, but it's basically just an accessory around his face. So all the work we did is just projecting all this back, same thing, updating here. And then you can see the wrinkles I took from Kevin. There we go. So now he just has a head with all the expression wrinkles, and then I moved this into place, and this is just weighted to spine 2 and head. So while his head moves, that'll move around, and it looks like he's a statue sitting on, this, but all of this is separate, and the head is the only thing that's actually moving. And it's got all the expression wrinkles. You can go through here and move the eyes around and all that good stuff. And you can take it into iClone, and you can, capture your face and blah, blah, blah. Make it move around. And in fact, they just released, like literally yesterday, AccuFace. So this has AI facial mocap from live or recorded video that's like super fidelity. So I haven't played around with that yet. I'm excited to someday, once I'm a real character artist, I'll get into that. But for now, oops. Oh, this is still going. I just want to make sure I don't break anything while I'm going through here and talking about stuff. But anyway, yeah. Oh, the other thing too that I'm not going to cover, although, whoa, maybe we should. So another thing I ended up doing past this point is taking the statue and then converting it back to a human. So it's got his features. This is Prince Rupert's features and his mole and stuff, and we just threw on some hair. Let's try it. Going through here and just fine-tuning based on any historical reference you have, just going through here, putting his mole in, putting the bags of his eyes in, Again, I just had my photogrammetry statue as reference, but we turned him back into a human. So now he's ready to take his kids to boarding school. He looked a little older with his face wrinkles, so I put a little salt and pepper in his hair. And now you've got a Prince Rupert updated for the modern day. That was a really quick process. That was about 15 minutes. Okay. Let's head back in. We'll say update. Let's go ahead and turn him, we got a little extra time. We'll turn him into a real human and we'll see how that turns out. A half-head statue human. The hair, let's try it. I want a mustache, hair, sunglasses, polo shirt, skinny jeans. Oh, and the settings there too. It is going to blend the body texture with the head texture automatically. You can do a lot of skin texturing in here too, update skin gen and stuff like that. So again, mostly it was ZBrush. You know, I use this as kind of my under the hood back-end organizational system, but most of my work is actually having fun just sculpting in ZBrush. In this particular live stream, it wasn't a lot of fun work because it was mostly just utilitarian, making sure certain points don't move. But like I said, in these other live streams, you know, doing the goblin and doing the vampire and even the stylized head too, it's not just, oh, can you do hyperreal stuff? If you keep moving forward, here's a stylized head using the same topology. You can do all this chiseled, super stylized chiseled work, and like the Into the Spider-Verse ink lines, you can go into ZBrush. It's capturing all of that information. So if you go through here on your base and just draw on some ink lines, and then for every expression, go in and put in ink lines where those would show up, send that back over, and now when you move the expressions around, those ink lines will show up as the face is moving. So again, stylized, hyper-realistic, and heck, even in, I mean, we did a Mario, like, I don't have him on here, but like, we had a Mario dancing around. Okay, now, I don't need to see the rest of his body, so I'm just going to go in here with the CC Base Plus material. I'm going to grab body, arm, leg, nails, eyelash, eye, and we're going to go down here and we're going to take this opacity down to nothing. And then for this eye specifically, it's got eye cornea right. I don't care about eye cornea left. We need to switch this from digital human eye. It has a ton of, there's like digital human eye, digital human skin that have a ton of parameters. If you want to go through here and do like subsurface scattering, sclera, limbus, iris, eye, textures, tons of advanced properties you can have. I don't need any of that because it's just a rock stone eyeball. So I'm hoping I can go up here and just say PBR. There we go. And then I need to go in here to roughness. Can I just make that gray? Yeah, it works. Okay. Moment of truth, everybody. Let's say it. Wrinkle check. Dramatic male. Oh, let's get some dramatic lighting in here too. Let's go in here to content, stage, Lightroom, maybe authority, because he's Julius Caesar. Oh, he's got boxers on still. We can turn those boxers off. He's got a little subsurface scattering in his ear. Oh, I forgot. We were going to basically just go in here and sculpt that and paint it to make it look like busted rock. That's all I was going to do. Okay. Ooh, creepy. Oh, also his tongue and teeth. We might need to move his teeth back a little bit. We can actually change that. Oh, a little. I have to go back in there and fix a little bit of his eye. I didn't quite morph it all the way down, but pretty close. Not too shabby for a live stream's worth of work here. And like I said, we can morph his teeth back. Oh, that's creepy. And also, you would basically need to go in here for him and say, okay, the eye we already did. So what are we looking for? Lower teeth, roughness, and then the upper teeth, roughness, because this is just pulling in from the defaults. And then What else is in there? Tongue. Tongue roughness. And I'm just pulling in default values. So, oh, another thing too. Let's go in here to move. We'll say edit facial. And then we can go through here. We can try different expressions. So we want to make him happy. Again, all these shapes you can fine tune. We didn't spend any time in there. Let's make him angry. Yeah, his mouth is a little busted. But what else? Fear. Oh, that's not too bad. And then also while you're in here, let's go ahead and just reset to 0. Muscle. Then go through here and we can move his head around, although, you know, the weighting on the neck might be a little weird. So if I'm gonna do, like, you know, pose him out. Also eyeballs, so we can go through here, we can say select the eyeballs, move the eyeballs around in a really creepy way. Go through here with the muscles. Let's say I want to drop, well, I guess he just has one side of his face. Lower and raise this over here. You can scrunch his nose up. Oops. Move his jaw around. Yeah, I guess that works reasonably well. Yeah, a little bit of that teeth comes through. So on these, some of these shapes, I need to update them just a little bit here. Okay, reset to 0. Let's get creepy. Content. Skin. Overall. Let's just steal. Yeah, you know what? Hold on. Just in case I need to render something out from here. All right, everybody hold your breath. Ignore head diffuse. Wait, I want to ignore head normal. Ignore head diffuse. I don't think I want to ignore anything. I think I want to just really just untransfer everything and just steal from Kevin all his skin. Yes. Yes. We'll turn his boxers back on. All right. Let's go into... This is too stupid. Actor. Nope. Actor. Eyeball. Let's swap out this eyeball. Material only. Let's swap out his teeth. Material only. Let's go to hair. Let's see. Hair element. Hair. Hair group. Beard, eyebrows, hair. Yeah, let's give him a classic short. Yes. Okay. What else we need? We obviously need to go in here to clothing. Let's switch back real quick so we can see what we're doing. And then we'll switch back to our atmospheric. So defaults, CC4. Okay, so clothing. We'll give them a little shirt. Pair of pants. Maybe some shoes. Motion, perform, soft physics, dance. Boom. Dancing Julius Caesar. Swoop, pew. Nothing cooler. And then motion, wrinkle check, dramatic male. Let's really get creeped out. Oh, all his expression. Oh, we need to swap his expression wrinkles, don't we? Let me see if I can do that real quick. We want to do expression wrinkles from Kevin. And again, I have to go fix those teeth, but heyo. And on his neck gets a little thick there. One thing we can do is go in here. I'm just having fun. We're just filling time. We'll go in here to our shirt and we'll say, we could say high body mesh, and we can literally just occlude that geometry. We can also try to go in here to conform and then say calculate collision, and that should pop it out a little bit. Ugh, but we might have to go in there and edit. Yeah, some of these shapes don't quite work, but I don't know. Anyways, you know what? Just real quick. Let's go out of this motion, pose, a pose. This is where, if we go in here to edit facial, you know, we go back in here and say, you know, move the eyes around, tilt the head while we're moving the eyes around. And then just dial in your expressions here. And then modify them. So, anyway, motion, pose, a pose. Silly, but here we are, all the way back to our original Julius Caesar photogrammetry head, pulled from our point cloud data from our crappy pictures we took years ago. So we'll head out. Cool. Let me get caught up here. Intro to ZBrush. ZBrush more complex in 3D Max. I wouldn't say that. 3D Studio Max is a lot. Like ZBrush is actually, my opinion, ZBrush is pretty simple. It does what it does very well, but it's not like you can do, because like in, you know, Max, Maya, Moto, Blender, Cinema 4D, Houdini, whatever else, those base packages, I mean, if you're only using 3D Studio Max for like box modeling, then yes, 3D Studio Max is a simple tool. But if you're using it for its entire suite of capabilities, then it's a very, very complex tool. Much more complex than ZBrush, but it kind of depends on what you're using it for. Speaking of, just to remind everyone, intro to ZBrush here on my ArtStation page. You can go here and you can see all these bent down corners of the intro or the what's new. So you can watch this and then go through all the what's new and get caught up from ZBrush 4R8 all the way to present day. So I'll put that here, as well as, and this is also for live streams. If you see anything in here that's like, hey, how'd you make the baseball head? How'd you make this Garbage Pail Kid? Just click on here and you can go down and watch the live streams. Live stream 1, live stream 2. Any of this. Here's the character creator posing. If you want to take just a ZBrush model that you've already done, here's everybody's favorite demo soldier. This will walk you through the process of going through and rigging the demo soldier and getting him to dance around eventually. And also storing and saving poses. Jeez, did I really? There we go. Yeah, so demo soldier, go in through here and you can send poses back and forth, store them to layers with the pose tools plugin. Here's just an arbitrary ZBrush model I did for the ArtStation Intro to ZBrush series. If you're on ArtStation Learning, it's on there. You can watch that series. So just taking that model and going through and animating it, adjusting the pose, converting those to layers, sending it over to, whatever render you want, going through and, modifying it, and then just doing a render. And then also cloth. So here's, again, another old ZBrush from my live stream. We actually live streamed the making of this avatar, Aang. And then going in here and setting him up, rigging him, putting in capsules, cloth simulation, weight map creation, and then going and animating him, and then sending that pose back with pose tools into ZBrush and updating our mesh, etc., and then 3D printing that stuff out. In fact, the 3D printing stuff, I think we did here. Oh, there's the Mario, the super stylized Mario. Then he's, this is the 3D print stuff, I think. Yeah, so here's me, using this to kind of move and pose, going there and 3D printing it, and then having the final result. There we go. So I still need to print out the troll, but we have a print of that goblin character. I have not tried their new facial capture plugin. It just came out like yesterday, but soon. I was in your workshop at the summit. I know your minds are blown. Yeah, so we kind of touched the surface. Thank you for taking that workshop, by the way. We kind of went through, the body, the goblin body, and that's about as far as we went. But like, yeah, keep your eye on my YouTube channel. We'll have even more cool stuff. And again, most of the work's done in ZBrush. You know, that's my favorite part, is I get to have fun sculpting more than anything else. Cool. Thanks, everybody. This is Julius Caesar, I believe. And in fact, before we head out, let me just verify that. I don't want to give you misinformation after all this. Recording, London Photogrammetry. So I have Athenian Bearded Man, Julius Caesar Half Head, Oliver Cromwell Death Mask, and of course Prince Rupert. And I think I've got this here. Marble head from a statue, probably Julius Caesar. Head has been burnt and badly damaged. The proper right side and back of the head is missing. Oh yeah, I could have come in here and looked and seen what the actual back of the head looks like. I guess I wasn't missing much. That's about what we came up with, right? So there it is. There's him. There's him. And finally, there's him. All ready to paint the town red. Spend a night in the town. Cool. Thanks, everybody. And I'll catch you all on the flip side.